Joe, we got word that Judge Emmett Sullivan has hired Beth Wilkinson to represent him to defend his decision to a federal appeals court in Washington, because he was given until June 1st to respond to General Flynn's attorneys to recuse himself from the case. What's going on here? Is it unusual for a judge to hire a lawyer in something like this?
Absolutely. There's nothing in the rules that provides for this. He's hired Beth Wilkinson. Question number one, who is paying for Beth Wilkinson?
Yes.
Is that coming out of court fees? Is the judge paying for this personally? This question needs to be answered on the record immediately. But besides that, this is not a regular judicial proceeding. The judge is not entitled to have one come in and file amicus briefs or to defend him. The court directed its order to him. It said to him, you tell us why we should not issue this mandamus. This behavior by Judge Sullivan is bizarre. It's quite obvious that he has lost it, that he has become vindictive, that the Flynn case, he's like Captain Ahab going after, Moby Dick. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is a sickness. He needs to be removed from the case and maybe even from the bench. Let's remember what he's doing. There are two cases directly on point. One is from the D.C. Circuit, his own circuit, which was a unanimous decision that there is no basis for amicus briefs in a criminal case, and that cases must be dismissed when the United States government wants them to. And then the other case is 2 weeks ago. The United States Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that you can't turn over a proceeding to amicus briefs when the issues they're dealing with have nothing to do with the case. This two controlling precedents that he ignored categorically. It is clear that Judge Sullivan has lost it, that this is a vindictive judicial proceeding, and he has no legal right to proceed. I expect him to be smashed to bits by the Circuit Court of Appeals.
Joe, let me just make sure I have this correct. You've got the judge, Emmett Sullivan, being challenged by the appeals court, and what they're saying is, explain where you think you get this authority. And
right.
Rather than explain it himself, he hires a lawyer like he's some sort of defendant?
Yes, and there is, under the mandamus rules of the court, it's just bizarre. He's not allowed to do this. Now, I think the court is trying to be polite to him. They were giving him a way out, like allowing him to order a dismissal, but he's not. He's digging in. What you are watching is the bizarre behavior of a federal judge who has become vindictive, and all you need to believe that is to see the crazy things he said about Michael Flynn in the first sentencing hearing, where he basically accused him of treason, and then had to come back on the bench a couple of hours later after a lunch break and apologize for having said that. That's unheard of in a federal court, that a judge does something that wild and maniacal. This guy's crazy. He's lost it, and his hiring a lawyer is disgraceful, and I want to know who's paying her. Who is paying her?
Can I ask one question of Beth Wilkinson? My understanding is that she represented Hillary Clinton's aides in 2016, Cheryl Mills,
yes.
Heather Samuelson, Jake Sullivan, Philippe Reines. What is Wilkinson's reputation and its relationship with Democratic politics?
Well, she's a Democrat, but it doesn't really matter where her relationship is. She has a conflict of interest. This is in direct conflict with General Flynn. I mean, I don't understand how all of these wonderful rules that are supposed to insulate the judicial process from undue influence just go out the window because a Republican is the defendant. This is disgusting, and I think the D.C. Circuit has figured this out. This is their first chance. They haven't had a chance to rule in the Roger Stone case or any other. This is their first chance to take a look at the idiocy that's going on in U.S. District Court in the District of Columbia. And Judge Sullivan has provided them with a wonderful chance to say, let's return to the rule of law, dismiss this case right now. Because I must tell you, disobeying two controlling case laws, one from the Supreme Court, one from his own circuit by Judge Sullivan, is an impeachable offense.
So let me ask you, Joe, as you're laying all of this out and you're talking about how unusual this is and how just outrageous all of this is, why would the judge put his reputation and possibly his career on the line for Michael Flynn? What's going on?
Because I'm sorry to say, Judge Sullivan has become an anti-Trumper, an anti-Flynner. The things that he said about General Flynn would be grounds for recusal and removing himself from the case. His performance has been bizarre. It's quixotic would be kind. This is someone who is unhinged. Talk about being untethered. He's untethered, and it's disgraceful. And it makes a lawyer, for those of us who practice law and rely on the sanity of federal judges, sure, once in a while you're going to find somebody who's a little biased. You can deal with that. This is crazy. His conduct is beyond bizarre. It is, and that's why the court, they're going to order him to dismiss the case. There's nothing else they can do given the controlling case law. But look at what Sullivan is putting the court system through by being adamant. It's obvious he hates Flynn. Well, you can't be a judge and function that way in a federal court. We expect that from some nutty state court judges, but we've got a nutty federal judge. It's real simple. This guy has lost it.
Yeah, it is an amazing story, and we're so glad you're here to help us cover it.
And by the way, let me just make one point. You've been hearing all these people say, recently, this is the new defense. All of these people in the FBI, the DOJ, and the Intelligence Committee all acted in good faith. They really thought that Donald Trump and his people might be Russian spies. I want everybody to realize this. That's nonsense. There was no good faith belief in this. This was a brazen plot which started July 5th, 2016, when James Comey illegally exonerated Hillary Clinton. And then when she didn't get elected, they wanted to take down Trump, and in order to take down Trump, they had to take down Flynn. Listen, there was no good faith belief. This was a plot from day one, and anybody else, I was watching these commentators this week and say, well, they might have really believed that that's nonsense. That's a suspension of reality. This was a plot, pure and simple. And you know what? It succeeded, except they didn't get Trump removed from office.
Joe, if you wouldn't mind hanging with us, we also want to talk about an investigation that has been ordered by FBI Director Christopher Wray into the Flynn investigation. So an investigation of the investigation who's going to be conducted by the people who investigated General Flynn. So it's kind of a little bit of a circular thing going on there. We'll get your take on. We're here with Joe DiGenova, legal analyst, former U.S. attorney to the District of Columbia. Joe, FBI Director Christopher Wray has ordered an internal review of the Michael Flynn investigation looking for potential misconduct. I don't know. It seems to me I've heard you toss around Christopher Wray's name on a lot of occasions regarding this. And can we trust Christopher Wray to investigate himself?
Christopher Wray is an empty suit. I call him Sugar Ray. He's a joke. This has been waiting around for him to do something about it since he was sworn in. This is so embarrassing to the men and women who conduct the FBI's business every day. They look at him, and what they see is a Madison Avenue schlup, limousine cop. He can't even. Remember, he has never given that speech in the courtyard of the FBI to all of its employees, saying that what came before me was wrong. This institution isn't like that. We're going to fix it. He has never condemned James Comey and Bob Mueller, and that's because he is a close personal friend of both of them. This guy is a joke, and Chris Christie's legacy, when this first term is over, will be that he gave the president a loser for FBI director. This is the guy that represented Chris Christie in Bridgegate. But I must tell you, the notion that he can now announce an investigation by the Inspection Division of the FBI is pathetic. And everybody inside that building knows it. He is a joke to the rank and file of the FBI. And when the election is over and Trump is reelected, he should, and I predict, will be removed.
I want to ask you more about the FBI conduct now because last week when we spoke on Monday, there was some speculation that maybe the CIA or a friendly foreign government had actually listened in on the Mike Flynn Kislyak phone call and then given it to the United States or given it to the FBI. But the Washington Post had some reporting last week from government sources that indicated that, no, this was actually FBI surveillance. The reality was, though, Joe, apparently Mike Flynn's name wasn't masked to begin with in the Flynn-Kislyak call that took place December 31st of 2016. What does that suggest to you about the FBI's surveillance and treatment of Mike Flynn's civil rights?
That it was all illegal. And this is what Durham is looking at. And the reason this is being leaked right now is because they know that Durham is probably in early June going to start indicting people. They know that the indictments are coming, that there was at least one major conspiracy indictment involving major FBI and DOJ players. I want to remind people of something. Barack Obama is the only president to have multiple decisions by the FISA court accusing his DOJ and FBI of lying to it repeatedly about the spying that they were doing against Americans, about the abuse of NSA databases, about using contractors to illegally access information about American citizens. This is what Durham has found out. But it's very important to remember that since 2017, when Judge Collier issued her first opinion, smacking down the Obama, DOJ, and FBI for illegally spying on everyone, the mainstream media has written nothing about this. This is the heart of the scandal, that electronic political surveillance and database illegal searches were going on as a policy of the Obama administration. That's what Durham is looking at. This Flynn wiretap is exactly a direct result of the illegal conduct that preceded it all from 2014 up to 2017 when Comey was fired. So make no mistake about it. The reason this is coming out now is because people are scared, and they're trying to put out a counter-narrative to their friends at the Washington Post. Remember the Washington Post used to say, unmaskings are rare. It just doesn't happen. And they quote Susan Rice saying, well, we would never do anything like this. And now the Washington Post writes, unmaskings are routine. Well, la-di-da. Isn't it interesting? Two narratives, same set of facts. And believe me, there was nothing good faith about anything that Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Loretta Lynch, Sally Yates, any of those people did. These were crimes, plain and simple. And Durham's going to make sure that some people pay.
But Joe, just to clarify for what you were just speaking about to Vince's question, it is illegal for an American citizen's name not to be masked, correct? And yet we found out that Flynn's name was not masked. If that is true, then who would have been responsible for masking his name when they intercept these phone calls? It is
a regulation. It is a rule that is imposed by the National Security Agency through its statutes that Americans, U.S. persons, they're called, yes, under the statute, must be masked. Their identities must be covered up. But if Flynn is the target, if he's the subject of the wiretap, he's not being masked, because that would be the first thing you have. You see, we do not know what type of wiretap this was. Nobody has authoritatively reported this, and we don't have anything from the Attorney General or John Durham about it. So making assumptions about all of this based on illegal leaks to the Washington Post is useless.
But we do know that these government officials had figured out that he was not a Russian agent. They sought to close the investigation into him at the very time that they were intercepting this phone call. And Peter Strzok kept it open.
Absolutely correct. And so that proves that there was no good faith effort on their part to do anything. Mm-hmm. This was a fraud from the beginning. They knew there was, quote, no derogatory information about General Flynn as of January 4th, according to the agents that were investigating. And then Strzok said, no, we're going to go after him on the Logan Act and all this, and in his conversations with Kislyak. This is so disgusting, what these people have done, and then gotten hired to talk about it on television. McCabe, Comey lecturing on ethics. Can you believe it? Can you imagine the idiots at William and Mary that hired him to come out and lecture on ethics? I guess he's coming back this year for a sequel.
Right. Unbelievable. Joe DiGenova, we always like it when you come back for sequels week after week, and sometimes even more frequently than week after week, because we appreciate your commentary and your insight. Thank you so much, and you enjoy your week.
Happy Memorial Day.